Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Thom and Joe show. I'm
I'm
Joe,
Tom.
and boy, do we have one for you.
Boy howdy, yes, in our continuing adventures on doing albums around or about their anniversaries, we have arrived in the hot summer of 1997 with today's subject.
Oasis's Be Here Now, and this video should release on the exact date of the album's release because the album's release date is on the CD.
Yes.
So it's hard to miss that one.
It is on multiple parts of the CD.
Among other things that of note, like an actual Rolls Royce, they trashed and put in a pool just because, and it was more cost effective than going around the world and shooting individual band members in certain parts of the world. This was the cheaper option, which tells us where we are with Oasis.
Yes. So, now, should we start with, I guess, for those who have been living under a rock for the last 30 years, Joe, who the hell are Oasis?
Oasis, they are a band of Northies.
People from
from Manchester. Mancunians.
Mancunians are very different, Joe. Those are people who are in films about candidates.
Okay. The Mancunian candidate, I got it. Okay. So, they are a rough band comprised mostly of brothers Liam and Noel Gallagher, the infamously most out of their mind, most dysfunctional brothers you have ever seen, besides maybe the Crays.
Or
I don't know.
The Wilsons.
Okay. Well, I mean, there might be more, but they certainly made their mark as being on all the drugs, on all the rock and roll, and hating each other.
That and making three of the best albums, 2 to 3 of the best albums of the 90s.
I did two.
Let's say two.
The third one that's a maybe is not the one you're thinking of. But
we'll get to that.
Yeah. So what we are so they get a band together from a broken up band called Black Rain.
The Rain. So
no,
yeah.
The Rain, and it's Black Roses, and then they became The Rain, and then they became Oasis, and so they do have some there's Bonehead, guitarist, and Quigsy, who is the bassist, who just looks like he is permanently looks like the child who has the face of Mommy and Daddy are fighting. Probably had that face a lot when Liam and Noel had a row. He got smashed enough, and they were picked up by Creation Records, who also have a story of their own. Like, Creation Records have their own documentary. I believe it's called Upside Down. So
by the point that Creation pick Oasis up in 1993, Alan McGee has already basically kick-started the sort of C90 sort of thing in the north. So we're talking bands like Primal Scream, the Jesus and Mary chain, etc. Has blown £250,000 on making My Bloody Valentine's Loveless. Has been bought out by Sony and is on basically all of the drugs in the universe, to the extent that he cannot remember anything of 1993 to date.
And there is a band who is not going to help them called Oasis, because their first album debuted at #1, and then Their second album inflated them to the biggest band in the
Yeah.
world for a year or two. And at that point, that was a license to print money. They essentially had hard drugs and hard liquor delivered to them every day. And life at Creation Records was so chaotic that anybody who would come in there to work as interns or something like that would not be told what to do. They would not be doing anything but be in the corner, standing on a chair, and just chanting, "I want to go home. I want to go home."
Yeah.
So that, but Oasis was too hard for them.
Yeah.
And so we have their first two albums, Definitely Maybe, and What's the Story, Morning Glory. They are two of the most indelible albums of the 90s. And, everybody's trying to, do... I'm just getting the setup to the album here because we have a long way to go
this
here.
This is without mentioning the huge rivalry, mostly inflated by the press, they've had with fellow Britpop, and there's sort of Britpop is a bit of a weird thing genre-wise. It doesn't really exist. A lot of the bands that obviously get dumped into this Britpop thing are, about as far away from each other as possible while still being in the sphere of a rock. This gets really played up in the musical press in the UK to the extent that basically there is the quote-unquote battle of Britpop between Country House and one of Oasis. I think it's Roll With It, isn't it, the Oasis song? I can never flipping remember what the Oasis song was. Blur come out on top in the singles chart, but get absolutely flattened by the monolith that is What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yeah, and I did watch a few videos on this. I actually found out what the Blur versus Oasis thing was in my research because as an American, and I was going to flip it to the American side of this, but there was no Blur versus Oasis. Oasis was the biggest band in the world for about a year, and Blur had song number 2. That's it. That's all we had, and it's just like. And looking at the videos, it was a made-up thing too because it was like it was a northern blue collar indie label versus South
school kids,
London posh. And that it was essentially made up because Creation was at that time was already bought out by Sony, so it was the man against the man. It was just the northern man against the southern man, which has a different connotation
in the US, absolutely. No. I mean, not undissimilar flip the other way around in terms of that whole thing. But anyway, at this point, Oasis are gigantic,
but also on their way up, they have injured themselves on every step of the way. They went on their first American tour and it got canceled right out because their first show in Los Angeles, they were on a new thing they had found called crystal meth.
Oh, Jesus.
And the entire concert is on YouTube. It is fascinating. It is fascinating. So Noel left the band for a little bit and went to Vegas, or it went to San Francisco. They're varying stories. And it is around here where he kind of wrote parts of What's the Story, Morning Glory. And then they got to bed, but they canceled the American plans. And then, they go in, they do What's the Story, Morning Glory, which is the one thing that everything went as planned and everything, went gloriously. But, within this, they have been trying to do 3 tours. And all of them they cannot complete. One infamously in Amsterdam, everybody but Noel Gallagher gets deported from the country. So it is within this context, and What's the Story, Morning Glory is the #1 album in the world. It is still in the charts, and so Noel Gallagher and everybody else gets stopped on their third tour. and they decide to go to a holiday in Mustique, which is an island in the Caribbean. And instead of taking a vacation, Noel decides he needs to do another album, which is he says it on his interview, like the hindsight interview on Be Here Now he did for the 20th anniversary. It's just and it's Northerners were like, no matter how severe it is, it's just let's get a cup of tea. And it's like, let's go into the studio.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, of course,
let's go into the studio and solve our problem.
At this point, by the way, you know, Oasis have also played 2 nights at Nebworth, which are like them.
Yeah, which
again,
I only recently watched because it was on Paramount Plus and they gave me free. And it's just like, oh, the one thing I wanted to watch on Paramount Plus and you gave me a month free, suckers.
Yeah,
but
where they play to 250,000 people a night. This is the sort of pinnacle we are dealing with. You know, they are at this point multi-billionaires. They basically rule the English music press. There is an argument, but obviously it's not. We're going to try not to tread on Todd's toes too much this episode, because
I did watch the Kim Justice video. I did watch Todd in the Shadows. I'm like. I did watch a lot of James Hargreaves. He reads everything Oasis, so I'm sure he's listening to this right now. James. Hello. You are. Thank you very much for all of your research and what you do. Although he does have what you need to understand is James Hargreaves does have a point of view. He is a person who had a very sheltered life, and then Oasis was kind of his first breakout. So he is a little. He does a lot of research. He sources stuff and he makes his arguments, but he's also very close to the topic. So don't take what he says as the truth. Sometimes just take it as an interpretation.
Yeah, for sure.
But he does really well. That's not to say anything bad. It's just like there are a lot of things like he did a video on like the 5 people you need to kick out of your band. Liam and Noel would be the first people kicked out of his band. And then there's this other video where he is just like, Noel Gallagher is secretly the greatest songmaker and genius of our time. So, there is that, and I understand that. But on my end, like Oasis was the band of my adolescence, and and they were the first people that showed me you need to separate yourselves from the people you like bands, sports teams, whatever. You need to have a certain separation from that. They are not you. They might mean a great deal to you, but you have to be able to separate, and because otherwise, that leads to some very bad things. And I'm sure we'll get into it in a little bit later. But so, 13-minute lead up.
Right. Yeah.
So this is where we're getting to the topic of today's thing. We just did a pre-credit sequence, so it's Be Here Now. So they go to Mystique to start Be Here Now, which is their album as the biggest band in the world, and has all of the curses and accolades of being
and
such.
All the guest appearances, because they're like the name checking in this episode will get ridiculous before too long.
And it's a lot of subtly terrible people, and I'm sorry, a lot of them only have cameos, thankfully.
And Paul Weller.
And they Paul Weller, and none of them are in it for long. And they don't really have much to say about it. They're just like, oh, these people are here. Like, for example, we get to Mystique Island, and it's just like a check off of whole, because Noel Gallagher is dating not Noel Gallagher isn't dating Kate Moss at that time. Sorry about that. He's married to Meg at that time. But so. He's friends with Kate Moss.
And here's Kate Moss.
Who is friends with Mick Jagger. And Kate Moss is a model from the 90s.
You might remember from being also in a relationship
the heroin chic.
Pete Doherty, who will also feature later in this episode.
Okay. Yes. So she's friends with Mick Jagger, and they're like, "Oh, hey, come out to Mystique for holiday now that you're done with this." So they do, and like the first thing they do when they get off the plane and he's showing his passport is he gets tapped on the back, and some guy is like, "They'll literally fucking let anyone on this island
Who's
these
the person,
days."
Joe?
And he turns around.
Who is
What?
the person, Joe? Who's he been tapped on the shoulder by?
The drummer of Pink
Nick
Floyd.
Mason.
Nick Mason. Yes. So he gets tapped on the shoulder by Nick Mason, and so he does that. And so after he does that, they go up to Mick Jagger's place. Mick Jagger is playing cricket.
Who's he playing cricket with?
Well, I don't know who he's playing cricket with. They're just saying he's playing cricket. But
Yep.
anyway, they meet up with Kate Moss and all of that. And Kate Moss, of course, is with her boyfriend at the time,
Oh,
Johnny
God.
Depp. Yeah. I
No.
really don't want to say anything more than that because that whole case has ruined a whole bunch of things, and I don't want to get into it and have a whole bunch of drama. YouTube people like play it for hundreds of thousands of hits while we get like a few hundred. But no, thank you.
Anyway, yes. So Noel is on Mystique. Noel is deciding to do, rather than relax, because this is Noel Gallagher, a man who matches being a workaholic with being, well, at this time a fully functioning drug
an alcoholic, a drug addict, all sorts of other dysfunctional things.
Yeah, we'll get onto other dysfunctional people in Noel's life shortly, because along the way, in like March 1996, his extremely deadbeat father has made a reappearance. He will feature heavily on the record to come.
Yeah, although you wouldn't know it. And we'll get to that too. So they make the Mystique demo. And it involves Johnny Depp on the sliding guitar for one of the songs.
Yep.
You can hear him on the Mystique demo that came with the 3-disc set. You hear him say "yeah," and that's about all people like will say about Johnny Depp's here. Like Nick Bryan, I watched the Hargreaves interview with him, and all he had to say was about Johnny Depp was like, "Yeah, it was good. It was fun."
He plays the slide guitar.
So it's not gonna. So he's not going to feature heavily. He's just there, and he is actually on the sliding guitar on the finished version of Fade In and Out, even though you can barely hear it. And that we will get to. So
Noel is...
They get all of this, and so Noel does not spend his vacation. On his vacation, he is working on the album to the point where for... a song, it's there's a difference between what song it's used on, but he steals Mick Jagger's children's plastic piano. Yeah, it was just left on the beach because like it's Mick Jagger's kids. They don't have any idea of what value is, but he steals it, records this little thing he uses for one song, and then he takes it back with him to Great Britain. To record for the actual album.
As one does. It's like...
Yeah. And he's like, well, yep, nicked it from Mick Jagger's kids. Mick, if you ever want it back, just let me know.
Yeah. That's not the only famous instrument that will also appear on this record. This is like, there's also like famous instruments on this record.
Yes.
We'll get to those.
Yeah, there's a lot to get to, and we're already 20 minutes in. So, yeah, I mean, we're doing the short version. And so we get back, and the rest of the band is as dysfunctional as ever, but Noel wants to get back into the studio and record the album now.
Yep.
And since they are the biggest band in the world, and, they get comparisons to the Beatles, like, where do you think they record?
Let me guess. Is it going to be Abbey Road?
Yes, it is Abbey Road. where at that point it was used by a lot of classical people to record their albums. There were a lot of proper gentlemen in tuxes recording stuff on strings and orchestra, and then you get into the Oasis part of the recording area, and it is, to quote Noel, Animal House. Like, there will just be a literal puff of smoke when you open the door, and it will obviously smell different, and it obviously sounds different.
Yeah.
Because it is just like an endless party there.
Yeah. It's...
and...
It
they are high as a kite.
Yeah, this is where things start to
put it the most kindly.
This is where things instantly start to go off the rails. Morris, who is basically, I think, Owen Morris, who essentially is co-producing the album, basically says to Noel, "This is completely unworkable. What is going on? It's fucking awful." Less than a month into production, Liam is arrested for basically having pockets worth of cocaine at the Q Awards.
As they kindly put it, a cocaine possession. In that he is possessed by the drug cocaine and needs an exorcism.
Yeah, this is by the way on top of already, frankly, frenzy level. Media focus on the band too. There is, Oasis are beloved of still the music press at the moment. This is a point where I think there basically wasn't a week before without a story about Oasis, one or the other of them. Yeah.
No. And British press is extremely tabloid-centric, and there's just everyone is looking for a piece of gossip or what have you. And, Oasis gives it to them in droves. And, as much as they try, as much as they don't want it, they find it because they are out of their minds. They are out of control. They, drunk or on drugs every night, just smashed, hammered. And it's just like, the only bit of professionalism is Liam would occasionally not drink the night before he does his vocals.
We'll get to his Liam's approach on recording his vocals very shortly. By this point, to exemplify how sort of just over the top, just everything is. There is a report. This is completely verified by multiple accounts. Somebody walks into the control room of Abbey Road Studios. One of the most famous control rooms in music history, and there is basically a small mountain range of cocaine on the mixing deck. It's just there's just hillocks of cocaine. Somebody tried to get a bag of grass. They got a bag of cocaine. This is sort of resembling the finale of Scarface. On like a regular basis.
Yes. Although no giant machine guns because it's Great Britain, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But so
they decide to move.
They get some things done. Done. But it is not a successful process. Like they try to do things to figure out how to record this. Like Noel Gallagher tries to do it to like an acoustic and then adding things later, but all of the tempo was constantly messed up because probably they were very messed up. And then with all of the attention they are getting at, they have to move to a recording studio on a farm in rural England, which if they thought that wasn't going to get them that was going to get them less attention, no. That just made them more paranoid and more obvious of what was around them. The police made their presence much more well known at times because they would occasionally turn on their lights and their sirens just to let them know they were there. There wasn't anything going on. And obviously there were just people, gawking. And they were on a farm, so they were surrounded by farm animals, and Noel Gallagher, as high as a kite, was constantly thought the farm animals were spying on them to the press. Like, does that sheep have a camera? Does that sheep work for the sun?
The sort of the word of the day is cocaine paranoia. I mean, at this point, they are basically full-on cocaine psychosis. They are like, basically, they
are more drugs
than men. You know, Oasis are starting to basically cut basically anyone who's not immediately basically playing on this album or recording this album out of the equation. It's becoming it's becoming, even before we get into the release of this thing, you know, a complete siege mentality.
Yeah, and that would continue into its release plans. But, you know, so they get some work there, not enough. Noel does not remember why they moved, but they decided they had to move back to London at the Air Studios. And before I move on, it's just like there's one more Abbey Road story. It's because, as you do, they listened to all of the Beatles albums in the dark, back to back to back, while George Martin was there and explaining how they did each individual song. And at one of these sessions while George Martin was doing that, like George Martin came up and it's like, could you help with this fellow and give a tour of the place? And they opens up the door. It's Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is just there touring while they're doing this, and he is just like, there's not much more to the story than Jim Carrey's here. Why the fuck not?
Because everyone else is at this point.
So, and he's just like elbowing like Nick Bryan, the recorder, and he's like, wow, this is incredible, isn't it? And it's like, yep. Yeah.
Is Jim Carrey also on substances at this point, or?
I don't believe so, but Jim Carrey's problems are another problem.
We haven't got time to talk about everything wrong with Jim Carrey.
No. Like I said, a lot of these people are subtly awful people. Or not so subtly awful, but we don't have time for that.
Move on, quickly. Right, Oasis are at Air.
Quickly, so Air.
Time to record some vocals, Liam.
So, yeah, time to record some vocals, and he gets to the point where he can't have anybody in the studio. So, Noel at this point fucks off to Mystique for a second time, and to do some things to polish the album while Noel's recording, or Liam's recording, I should say. And one of the things he records is he's with Meg, his wife at the time, and he's like, you know what Fade In Out needs? It needs this, like, really psychotic scream. He doesn't tell anybody he's doing this. He just, like, has a Walkman on, and he records the scream one morning, and his wife thinks he's having another psychotic drug episode, which tells you how much drugs they are on at this point.
Yeah, emphasis on another.
But no, yeah. So Noel's like, no, just doing a little work for the album, polishing it up.
Yeah. This is without going into Liam's other method of recording vocals, which is... This is the PA system, isn't it?
Yes, the PA system. I don't think this is recording the vocals. I think this is just having fun. So what he would do on the nights after they were done is he would bring over like famous friends like, you know, Paul Weller and other people, and he would play the albums they've recorded front to back, and they would just set him in this chair and just blast it over a PA system. And Liam would do the vocals live from beginning to end every night.
Like very, very loud,
they did
like
this
100 decibel karaoke.
Yeah. But we're at that point where Noel comes back, listens to the recordings, thinks they're absolute shit, and then they just spend 2 days just finishing the vocal recordings, and it's done. And another thing that is going to feature very heavily when talking about this album is they recorded on each track has to be recorded on a machine, and there's a machine that has like 48 tracks, so you can record each track and then layer them. They had 2 tape machines that leads up to 96 tracks, and they used them all for most of the tracks on the album. There are only a few where they don't, but they do a lot of guitar overdubs, which is just, recording one guitar on top of the other and giving it this layer feeling. They put, at times, 30 guitar overdubs on it, sometimes more. Sometimes they just recorded an open mic in the studio to get a vibe.
Such as whenever there's a bass on this, apparently, I think you told me.
There's an orchestra on some like, do you know what I mean? There is an orchestra on it, but they do the orchestra recording, put it on a small Marshall amp, and that is what they record and put on the track. So they are all on cocaine, including the producer,
increasing
Owen,
amounts of cocaine.
Morris, increasing of it. Probably Nick Bryan, although Nick Bryan in the interview I was very chill, and he didn't really talk about the, other things. He just said, "Well, yeah, we did some interesting things on that." Just being nice and kindly, but so the album is done. They've run out of tracks on the tape machine for every single song.
Some of which
maybe.
Didn't.
I mean, there are a couple.
Didn't work. They had to basically. I think they were basically at the point where they were having to sort of at any one point during the record. One of these tape machines wasn't working.
Yeah, one or two. Yeah, Noel was like, one or two of those bastard tape machines was not working.
So
at any
fact
time,
of keeping 96 individual audio tracks in sync is just frankly insane. I mean.
Oh, they were insane.
They were mad.
Completely bonkers. And
I mean, to talk about overproduction, to give some comparison, obviously 2 years prior to that, Billy Corgan had obviously done Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. The most guitar tracks on that, which is like this, the basically the stylistic thing for Watch the Smashing Pumpkins became famous, which is basically the Pumpkin Guitar Orchestra thing, which is basically dozens of guitars overdubbed each other, comes out to less guitars on the track Through the Eyes of Ruby, which is the most guitars on the album, which is about 50. It comes out to less guitars than every single track on Be Here Now. This is too many guitars.
Yeah. They are the biggest band in the world, and they are going to make the biggest album they can think of in the ways their cocaine-addled minds can deem as biggest.
And, where are we going with this?
And it
basically is.
It is 72 minutes. 72 minutes of just loud,
very loud.
11.
And this is already
They put it at 11.
And this is a band already known for being basically the proponents, the flag bearers for basically the musical technique known as brickwalling. I'm not going to go into horrendous detail. Brickwalling is basically where you basically mush it as fast as it will go. Basically, it's more compressed equals louder. The sort of the forerunner of this is the 1995 remix by Iggy Pop. So this is a guy who would be, by this point, basically listening to himself play very, very loudly for 30 years. His infamous remix of Raw Power, which is just basically just a wall of noise. Oasis make it louder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's partially it's a stylistic thing. I mean, the whole point, particularly with obviously What's the Story, Morning Glory, is it's loud, so we can cut through the sound in a pub. That's genuinely part of why. Because you have, I don't know, the album playing on a jukebox in the pub. Oh, everything else is mixed at a normal level, so it gets lost in the mix. Oh no, Oasis is you can hear it from the other side of the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel at this point it's a good enough stopping point to like discuss our histories with. I mean, I know you're significantly younger, so you don't have a history with that. You don't. I am significantly older. I was an adolescent in 1995.
Came out, but
Oasis became the official band of my adolescence, which became my official favorite band ever.
Yeah.
And they continued to be that. Just as default, because I don't have another band that's going to replace them. There's nothing I listen to at like 40 that's like, oh, this is the deepest, most meaningful thing to me than you are when all of your emotions are firing off, and this is the most meaningful. And Oasis was the most meaningful thing, even if you couldn't tell me what exactly Wonderwall was about, but you just listen to it at like 1 a.m. or something like that, and it was I've gone. Okay, sorry, we might have to do an edit here. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
No, got into the sound.
Discord kicked me.
Got into the speakers. It's fine. Keep going.
Okay, keep going. So, but eventually, I also discovered that like they are a dysfunctional band, and all the stuff you got in America is Liam and Noel hate each other and fight each other. Like they had, like MTV played it up, and that's the only part you got. So they were the biggest band for a year. We did not get the definitely maybe wave that Great Britain did, so we never got the Blur versus Oasis. But we did get What's the Story, Morning Glory, which is my favorite album of all time and is fantastic. I can put it on at any time, and it's just like, this is definitely my favorite album of all time.
For sure.
It speaks to me, even though if I don't know what it's speaking to me about, except for maybe Cast No Shadow, that, as a person who is there but not.
And I absolutely, I think they get this is the thing, the genius of Noel Gallagher's songwriting, compared to basically the other sort of major songwriters who are around him at this point, which are basically Damon Albarn of Blur, obviously the Jarvis Cocker of Pulp, and obviously the gentleman from the rotating door of songwriters in the band Sway, none of which obviously got to the United States in the same way.
No, so it was Oasis. Like we had some songs from Great Britain, and also they were like the biggest for a while, but because of how much different all of the tastes in America are, they couldn't maintain like that peak for very long because there were so many other things.
I mean, this is the point in 90s rock where it's basically 90s rock and 90s alternative, but it's basically a revolving door of what's big at this point. I mean, is this before the ska revival?
Might have been at the same time. It might have been right around where Be Here Now came out. But that just explains how much different stuff was. Because you say there's like Britpop, which puts things together, and that weren't supposed to be together because they're very different people. That's sort of what alternative rock was in the United States in the mid-90s. You had all of these bands that like after Nirvana died, or Kurt Cobain died and Nirvana broke up, that what was rock going to be? And it was so many different things. So you had Alice in Chains, you had Foo Fighters, you had REM, U2 was evolving into something, to their like pop version. You had, I'm trying to think of all these different bands.
Beck, that sort of thing. Beck
was in there too. Yeah, all of these fit under alternative. You would not put them next together in a genre if you were really being picky about it. But they were all fell into alternative. So, and that's, I think, the thing that most British people, when they talk about American music, don't, because even James Hargreaves was talking about Oasis's like one night feud with REM, and they said there was this like gentleman movement in the United States. Well, that's one part of it. I mean, that might have been Pearl Jam and REM, and that might have been Seattle. That was not the rest of the United States. That was not like the massive movement sweeping the country. So you have all of the Oasis could only maintain their crown for a short while and for this one album. And then it's just like 1997, like, yeah, they're my favorite band. But I see their music video on MTV for Do You Know What I Mean? And it's just like, I was never in a hurry to get the album because I'm a stupid kid who's not paying attention to release dates or anything. I don't know if this is out already, and also I don't make money at that time. It's just like I had an allowance and I saved up, enough. But I also had a ski trip I was going on with my family, so I kept $20, and I promised myself never to spend it because when I got back, I was going to buy Be Here Now, and this was like January in '98, so that's about 5 months after the album came out. And then I lose my wallet, and ironically, this is a leather wallet. It's not ironic, but so it strangely enough has the British flag on it,
as one does.
As one does. So it's not until February until somebody finds it, sends it back with the money, and I finally buy Be Here Now. So I don't know. Oasis were there in the like zeitgeist or whatever you want to call it in America, but they weren't the defining voice of it at that point because they had so many other things, and this was where Garbage was coming in too. So that Garbage kind of took over, like, hey, the Great Britain thing for a little bit. But so, I mean, I wouldn't say they were on their way out. They were just on their way to being somebody who was just there.
Part of the
Obviously,
furniture.
that was not the case in Great Britain.
I mean, this is the thing. We sort of view the monoculture of, obviously it's a little bit more Goldfish Bowl. The biggest day, Oasis, as I mentioned earlier, still command, this specific thing that I don't think any other British band really. I mean, you got to consider, What's the Story, Morning Glory is the second highest selling. Is the second, not only the second highest selling album, of British rock. Full stop. The first being Queen's Greatest Hits, but is the second quickest selling album of all time, which is only beaten by Adele. I mean, we're talking, Oasis have a particular spot in the music pantheon of the UK.
Yeah, they are gods as much as certain music fans do not want them to be gods.
Yeah, and then you get a story about every few months going, but they might get back together.
Every few months they get one, but it's just we'll get that in like epilogue fashion. But so we come to Be Here Now, talking about the album proper. 45 minutes in.
Here we are. My history of the Oasis basically, as I got into them around Don't Believe the Truth, and basically worked backwards from there. I like them as a band. They're good. I definitely would regard What's the Story, Morning Glory as an important record. I am, unfortunately, this is where Joe throws something at me from across the internet. I am more of a Blur fan.
Okay. Like I am not. Like, I do not give a crap about Blur.
That's fair. I mean,
I do not see them as rivals. I am here in America where there's song number 2
and then whatever David Albarn did out as Gorillaz, which is a completely different thing.
Yeah. So, you can tell me Blur was Pink Floyd Part 2, and I would believe you, even though that's Radiohead.
We'll get to them later as well.
Yes.
So I think we need to start before we actually talk about the contents of this album. We need to have a talk about the cover of this album, because it's
yes.
very much a statement of intent and sort of, I guess, a hint of where Oasis's minds kind of are at this point.
Well, there's parts I can tell you, because it's just like they wanted to film all around the world, and each band member was in a different part of the world, and they would take a picture. That was cost prohibitive. What they considered not cost prohibitive was putting a whole entire goddamn Rolls Royce in a pool, an actual pool.
Not obviously driving it in a la Keith Moon, which is obviously what they're alluding to on the front cover. It's on carefully hidden struts, as probably the photos I'm putting in this video are probably delivered, showing now. But it is still a £100,000 car in a swimming pool.
Yes, and there are various other references to other bigger things, or bigger bands, and that will be a motif throughout this album. And so, and there's the calendar where it sets the release date, and there's the clock for me here now,
which you have on your wall, I believe.
I have on my wall. It's the disc. They blew up the disc. They put it on a recycled record and made a clock out of it, which is because it's just fortunate we were doing this video, because we needed a clock in the living room so people could have something to look up and see what time it was. I needed something in an empty part of the wall that went with two art things of cats, which were black and beige and white, and that album CD worked perfectly with it.
And then we got into a very confused, very short conversation on, wait a minute, why are they not using IV rather than I? And I said, well, that's on certain clocks in the UK.
Oh. Yeah, because that's how the Romans numerals, before they got the IV, it was I. So it is correct in a older, Great Britain was ruled by the Romans at one point.
After all, they only invented IV in 1990 with the release of Final Fantasy IV. There we are. There we are. So, the album cover is basically Oasis standing around outside a rather impressive-looking manor house with lots of things that are related to other rock bands. A car in the swimming pool, and the date, in which case, in case you wanted to remember what day you bought this album on, it was a Thursday. This is being released on a Sunday. And then the album itself starts, and it sort of so track 1, which is, do you know what I mean? Which is, basically a statement of intent.
Yes, it is very much a statement of intent. They are the biggest band in the world.
They're back.
They're back, and they are gigantic. They are gods, and they are in the same level as all the famous people you could think of. This song is apparently secretly about how just striking back at his father, who is trying to get back into Noel's life. And all of the lyrics are about how all the people are with me now. I'm the biggest person. You can just go fuck off. Because to some subtext, Noel's father was extremely abusive to his wife and his sons. Noel, as the older brother, did his best to shield Liam. And eventually he got to the point where Noel's went, you get out of this house and you don't come back or I will fucking kill you. And then Oasis made it big, and his father tried to get back into his life, and Noel is not having it. And we'll get get more on this in the epilogue, but that's secretly what this song is about. And what we're gonna find is what this album is about. There are things this album is about, but they are not communicated very well because, like, as Todd in the Shadow would put it, it's an "I'm back, bitch" single, which is, you know, it is what it says it is. It is, I am back. I am the biggest person in the world. You know, pay attention to me because we are awesome. And it is that. And it is that on
so
steroids.
you get start with this sort of Hendrixy style, sort of wah-wah, sort of wacka-wacka guitar. You have Morse code, which apparently spells out bugger all.
It's supposed to, but they screwed it up and it's nonsense.
It's apparently nonsense. It's obviously, you know, there's also references to Strawberry Hills. We haven't even got to Liam singing. We're like, this is like this 2-minute intro of just, you know, hello, we're Oasis, we're back, we are the loudest thing.
There's an orchestra in there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere in there is actually strings.
There's a plane taking off.
It's just so much noise at once, and it's like, yeah.
There are people who, like, this album has obviously gotten a lot of deep criticism. I love this song. Yeah. How else are you going to begin this album? Todd in the Shadows was like, this needs to be a couple tracks down. No, this needs to be right fucking now. And I love it. I don't know. I have ADHD, so sometimes, like, even though I am very analytical of the lyrics, if the lyrics are second rate, I don't particularly care sometimes. So it's just like,
for sure, so it's huge. I mean, this is like, Noel did a remix for, I think it was the 20th anniversary box set, which is just called NG's Rethink, and it's good. But there's something just absolutely, just this thing is huge. You
take the massiveness out of the song, and it is just a song. Like, I keep listening to the Rethink, and I'm like, oh, did the song end? And that's, like, it, where the original is like, it is grabbing you as the nose, and it's like, look at me. I am the biggest band in the world, motherfucker. Pay attention. Which is mostly how Liam Gallagher treats just everybody else
absolutely.
These days. But
and it's just like, they played this on Top of the Pops. Obviously, minus the introduction, but I mean, this came. I think this actually did very well in the this did very well in the charts.
Yeah.
It's like,
all of this did very well in the
absolutely.
British charts.
The music video is great.
Noel Gallagher, you need to just look up YouTube if you have like 20 minutes where you just want to be absolutely entertained. Noel Gallagher did a commentary track on the music video, and it's just like, I don't know where these people are going. I don't know where these people are coming from. I don't know why they are wearing camouflage. Helicopters. Oh, they got our boys off of like training.
In the same. So this is actually shot in the same gasworks that Stanley Kubrick would use for Full Metal Jacket. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Yeah.
And Noel is wearing and Liam is wearing a parka because of course Liam's wearing a parka. I love this song.
Yeah. Liam's fashion is parka. Impeccable.
I love this song. I think this this is like, if you're going to start, you know, we are now the biggest band in the world record with something that basically goes, and this is why. You could do a lot worse than, you know what I mean, and it's just
my only problem with these songs is if that's the only kind of song on your album. If the only song is "We are the best motherfuckers in the world" and all of that, then it gets tedious and old, and you don't have anything else to say.
Unless you add WK.
Party.
Yeah, I mean it's very, but it was also basically the sonic template for the rest of the album, which is basically Noel has got all of the guitars in the world. Good luck listening to hearing anything else under those guitars apart from possibly Liam.
Yeah.
It also samples, I believe, doesn't this sample, I think it's the Wu-Tang Clan or something. It's some ridiculous sample on this.
No, I had that detail in my
Straight
mind
out
at
of
one
Compton,
point, but
so
it's just like I was.
Yeah, the drum loop on this is
Okay.
obviously the famous intro drum loop from Straight Out of Compton, which is
So
technically NWA have a writing credit on this song.
Yeah,
as you do. Yeah. I have no complaints about this song. I don't think you have any complaints about this song. I fucking love this song.
I do not. There are a lot of people who have other complaints. Like, you can go to the Todd in the Shadows video. You can go to anybody who has done a review on Be Here Now post 1997, and they have thoughts.
We'll get to the critical responses shortly.
Yeah, and I have my critical things too. At the. We'll finish. We'll get my thoughts when I finalize. How about that?
And then my problems with the album immediately start. I do not like My Big Mouth.
Because I'm fine with it. But I get the problem.
So My Big Mouth is basically as I said, we've already kind of gone into the production of this. My Big Mouth is everything wrong with this style of this sort of, wall of guitar sort of thing, and it is just, it's mush. This is the problem with it. It's so overblown. It is like being hit round the head with an amplifier.
Yeah, it is suffocating at some points.
And I like Metal Machine music, the Lou Reed album, that is nothing but guitar loops. I don't like this track.
Okay, and that's perfectly fine.
Doubly annoying because
it's a fun. It's trying to be a fun song about how.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, it could be about a lot of things. What Noel Gallagher said in the time when he was talking about this album is it was about how all of his fans think they're on the phone to John Lennon and know what they want, or they say all of his fans say stupid things and say stupid things, but they're the biggest band in the world going to the Hall of Fame and stuff like that. Again, it's not communicated very well, especially the second verse. I never spoke to God, and I ain't ever been to heaven. Who is God in this? Can you guess?
John Lennon.
Well, it's John Lennon because I told you. But if I hadn't told you what he thought, then you wouldn't be able. So.
Yeah, that's obviously a reference to.
Unless you discount that Liam Gallagher thinks he's the reincarnation of John Lennon, but that's another story for another day.
We haven't got time. I mean, obviously, yeah.
But yeah, like I said, you get the gist of the song, but you don't get the, it is suffocated by the noise of the entire experience.
And it's the one track on the album where I think knocking Liam's vocals up perhaps a bit in the mix would improve this song for me, because I think the lyrics on this are great, even if they are the sort of typical nebulous, well, I'm writing about what I know, but what I know is my business and my business alone, even though it obviously literally borrows lyrics from John Lennon's God.
Yeah.
It's like, Liam, you're trying to be subtle, but at the same time
and going back to Do You Know What I Mean, they also make a whole lot of comparisons to some of the biggest artists. There's Blood on the Tracks, Bob Dylan, and
Blood on the Tracks and I Feel Fine.
I Feel Fine, which is Beatles, and there are a lot of Beatles
references. You could make a drinking game out of this,
obviously,
and Beatles references, and I guarantee
you would be smashed by the end of Do You Know What I Mean. So, but that is obviously fits into they are in accepting their role in this pantheon. But they keep, if you would like mention less of the people you are next to and just be yourselves, it would probably serve you a lot
I
better.
feel it does sort of move a little bit away from sort of the Oasis wheelhouse of lyrics, which is, you know, as I said, it is the everyman experience. The lyrics are basically your face here, because that's how Noel has always written in a very universal style, and particularly more so post Oasis, to the point where it's just like it's
you don't quite know what it's about, but you can make it about you if you'd like, and that's what makes it special. And that's what's the story Morning Glory was especially about that, because you don't know what Wonderwall is. You cut So Sally Can Wait.
Who's Sally?
People spent decades figuring out what who that was about, but it didn't have to be about who Sally was.
Everybody knows the Sally.
Yeah. So, it was that poetic stuff that Noel was after. The problem was he had to make all of these new songs because he had given away so many B-sides.
The master plan.
Like great songs as B-sides that they made an entire album called The Master Plan, which is better than Be Here Now, which is made a beat. But he had run out of them. I think the only one he had at that point that would be used in the master plan was Stay Young, and it was argued like whether to put that in or the next song, Magic Pie. And Magic Pie won because it's the only song Noel sings on. So, and he wanted a Noel song.
Yeah, absolutely. That's entirely
so fair. But even though Stay Young is a really good song, and it fits well, with the master plan and not on
the master plan is by the way probably the best selection of B-sides alongside the Smiths' Hatful of Hollow. It is genuinely like the best B-sides compilation period, and there are songs on that frankly, the master plan is the best song Roald Gallagher's ever written. Let's put my hand down. That it is the best song I think Noel has ever written.
Yeah. And also, and I don't know where to drop this, so I'm going to drop it now. So with a lot of the like worst albums of the 90s, there's some that are straight like, terrible. It's like, what were you thinking? But a lot of them had a like certain pattern to them that I'm going to compare this to Alanis Morissette of all people.
Ironic.
So, yeah, don't you think? So, about her album after her big album, and she became huge, was Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie, which is, by the end of the decade, a lot of the music critics would put that it has one of the worst albums of the decade. And I've listened to it. And, I like Alanis Morissette songs now and then. It has, shockingly, some of the same problems. Not that it's too loud. Not that that's a specifically individual Oasis problem. But if you make these extremely long albums and you didn't have the songs before and you haven't polished them, what they do is underline your weakness or your crutches that you lean on and how you write songs, and it makes them extremely obvious. Like with Alanis Morissette, she comes up with one phrase that she repeats over and over and then puts a bunch of lyrics over, like, I see you hating each other, I see you doing this, I see you celebrating war, and that's the song. That is 50 to 60% of the songs on Supposed Infatuation Junkie, that long title. Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie. So, in the case of Oasis, like, it underlines a lot of their songwriting weaknesses, where they will write a verse for a song, but they will have the standard 2-verse and chorus. But what Noel Gallagher will do is he will change the pronouns of the who's talking or what they're talking about. Like, I hope I think I know. It's like, I tried hard to put me in. You tried hard to put me into my place.
Yeah.
And then it's I tried hard to put me in my place, and that is why I've got to keep her. And it's just like, you didn't really write a second verse there, mate.
This is one up from just getting a school choir to sing it. No.
Yeah. So you underline that problem, and they don't really evolve the chorus super much, and you notice that because these songs are increasingly long. Stand By Me is the ultimate test where, am I in the mood to listen to this album today? You just pop on Stand By Me, and if you listen to the song for about 2 minutes, and then you're like, oh, this is all right, then you can listen to the album. If you're like, no, then you're not in the mood to listen to the album that day.
And this is the problem. This is the problem. We haven't really talked. We'll obviously come on to each track in turn. But the problem with this album is length. I mean, this is like a couple of years after, another band who were essentially at this point running on empty, and the basically the problem with their formulaic ideas were becoming very obvious, which is Metallica were doing, Load, which basically maxed out an entire CD. This is like, at least with Load, there are 14 tracks and a nearly 11-minute track to end the album. Every track on Be Here Now is... The shortest track on this is, except for the coda of All Around the World, is nearly 5 minutes or upwards. The longest track on this is nearly 10 minutes long.
Yeah, even the fast one, I Hope I Think I Know, is, long for what it's supposed to be. Like, I Hope I Think I Know is, like, similar to Big Me by Foo Fighters. That it's a really fast song that immediately sets its intentions and just sounds good, feels good, and Big Me leaves. I Hope I Think I Know doesn't.
It keeps revolving like somebody stuck in a door.
Yeah. And okay, I think we should probably talk about the song that most people will like. This is where Todd detaches. This is where like Kim Justice detached. This is where a lot of people like who didn't live with this album just check out. And I kind of get it and I kind of don't. And it's just like, okay, so when you listen to the Beatles on drug albums, do you just like completely tune out the nonsense "we're obviously on drugs" songs from that?
Number 9. Yeah, it's like, even though I think I genuinely love the White Album, but I think it is extremely influential in bringing, what is Revolution Number 9 is music concrete, that sort of stuff that Karl-Heinz Stockhausen was doing in the late 50s and early 60s. It is also extremely self-indulgent, and it's like so music journalists, you have no problem giving the White Album, which was basically 4 people who very much did not like each other, mostly high on drugs, one of them going through a divorce, one of them leaving the band and coming back. That's sort of drug. And this is the thing, like the problem with Be Here Now, and we'll come on to obviously the way that the cocaine psychosis really affected the marketing of this album and its release. This gets sort of almost derided as, it's a druggy album. It's an album made on when everyone was on cocaine. Yes, and do you know what else? What the album almost exactly 20 years before Be Here Now was also made on absolute mountains of cocaine? Rumours.
Most of them. Yeah, Rumours.
Rumours made on astronomical.
And absolutely dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Just like the band hated themselves. Like, and Todd in the Shadows covers that too, and like how much. I'm not gonna say this is rumors. It is absolutely not. Like especially with how the song. But I do think. Going back to Magic Pie, it fits the Rob Gordon making a mixtape. You make two like blasters at the top to get your attention, and then you have to cool it down. So Magic Pie is to cool it down. And I think it's good that it's there instead of Stay Young, because you would have been at this level, and I think more of it would have been forgotten. Like there's a lot that gets forgotten in when you just listen to Be Here by itself, all the way through. Excuse me, but
because it's dominated by the mountains, so to speak. It is,
it's dominated by the sound, and the sound just chugs through every track. But this one, I mean, it is dense. It is obviously as dense as the rest of the album, but it's a cooler dense, and just listening to what it was about. Noel sang it because it is about Liam, and it's Liam asked one day, it's like, how do you not get into some of the shit I get into? And it's just like, so he just wrote this song about Liam, who, I mean, you can take it however you like. He is, I like him, but he is he's a person who acts like nothing to lose but his mind, so he goes into the process of losing mind. It's very clearly about a person who is on drugs and why they are on drugs, and then, there's a lot of things. I dig his friends, I dig his shoes, he is just a child with nothing to lose but his mind. And then they get to the second verse, they are sleeping while they dream, but then they want to be adored. And it's just like, is that about Liam? Because he changes the pronouns. Because like, I dig their friends, I dig their shoes. So, and then, then he changes it to I am just a child with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it is about being on drugs. It's about a bunch of people being on drugs and like their problems with the other. It's like they have problems with the man or whoever they have problems with at that time, but then they have big ambitions and they're gonna be on their way to being huge. And this works for me. This really works for me because it does feel it's about a specific thing, but it's about you can bring in and take it to and make it what you like.
I mean, I noticed that.
Yeah, as long as what it's about is about drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I note this of sort of I don't know if this is just a complete coincidence. A lot of the songs that Noel actually sings on Oasis albums, which are basically, I think, usually is about 1 or 2 tracks an album, they always do seem to be addressed at, Liam. or about Liam, or addressed to Liam. I mean, certainly the master plan is definitely addressed at Liam, and certainly obviously Don't Look Back in Anger is definitely addressed at Liam.
But yeah, it's a lot of this is Will secretly up to the point where they do Dig Out Your Soul, which is all about the apocalypse. It is a themed album about the apocalypse, and what could this possibly be about? Oh, the band broke up a week after their last single dropped.
I think we should have done that out of my soundtrack, Noel.
Oh goodness.
I like Magic.
Yeah.
Magic Pie is a great song. As I said, this is like one of the other songs I really like on the first half of the album. It's nice.
Yeah. I will say this. I love all of the songs on the album at one point in my life. I do not love all of them at once, and I especially do not love them all played together in a row.
Stand By Me is good. It's being used in an advert in the UK, actually, ironically.
It's
for a
fine.
bank chain.
Yeah, I just want to say it is fine. Like, there's a weird, and we're gonna. There are other songs we're gonna discuss this about, but when Noel is being direct and he is clearly at somebody that means a lot to him. It feels like the effect of the song is less. It's very weird.
No, I'd
like
agree.
this is Noel Gallagher being sincere, and this is being it. There is no. The, it is about him. He is not. He doesn't have his life together, but stand by him because nobody knows what it's going to be. There is not a lot of interpretation of what this song is about. And it feels like the ones where there's not a lot of interpretations are the ones that get less, that are less impactful. And it's very strange that that's how that works, because you think the things that mean the most to him are the ones that get the most, or that you feel the most. But I don't feel this song for whatever reason. It might be the length, and because it's just like the, I don't know. They're using. Noel has admitted to using all the young dudes for this, but he changed the chords.
All the young dudes.
That's not how that. But that's not how that song works, compared to how this song works. And there's and of course they do the chorus over and over, and it's just stand by me, and obviously Tom the Shadows overplayed played how it feels to him by just playing the stand by me part over and over. And if you're not really into that album, it's like a sludge, and all you're hearing is the chorus, which is again owes to the wall of noise that they are putting in even the cooler tracks.
I mean, Stand By Me is the track you could go, this is literally just Liam, Nolan, and like an acoustic guitar. It would work that all. It's not undissimilar to the way they did Wonderwall, where it's basically fairly stripped back. And this is sort of the part where the big problem of the album starts to go. Is just everything is up to 11. There is no 9, there is no 10, there is no sort of there's no lower numbers in this album. Everything is up to 11. There's apparently like a string quartet somewhere on this. They're lost in the mire. There's just
Yeah, and this is where a lot of the album blends together, and if you're not listening closely, it'll have gone through 2 or 3 songs, and you won't know. I mean, I will know where I am because I've listened to this album hundreds of times, and but I don't get the feeling that I'm really listening to the album. So some of the emotions get lost. I think especially in the emotional ones, except save for Don't Go Away. They get lost because it is just this train of Oasis is the biggest band in the world, and we have to make this gigantic thing, and it runs through this whole album, and it's really loud, and it's I'm trying to get to this one thing, or I'm trying to sleep, or I'm trying to do whatever, but this train won't stop.
And the train doesn't even stop at there's no stopping station. We're going from here to here. It's a non-stop. Sorry, you're gonna have to. If you want to get off, sorry, you're on Oasis's wild cocaine train now. I think I know. I genuinely this is the one that this is the one that I'm afraid gets lost in the mix for me. It's just I know there is a track between Girl in the Dirty Shirt and Stand By Me. I know it's there. It has that rather good chorus bit that basically, because it just does that sort of looping through those 3 phases rather well, and that is my opinion on that song.
Okay, I have a better opinion. It's some people have gotten it's an underrated track. And it does get lost, but it's one of those ones I could attach myself to. So it's something I got, because they're trying hard to put me in my place, and that's why I got to keep running. And it's just like, you tell me I'm free, then you tie me down, and from my chest. Yeah. And it's just like, I was going through a lot of it. It's a lot of, you know, you are free and unleashed on this world, but you're realizing the world is just kind of full of shit. And you don't know what you're doing, but you're going at it full force. And that's, you know, you listen to it at the right time. And that's kind of what I did. It's just like, you listen to it as...
And that's Noel's songwriting at its best. It is that universality, which is like, hey, that's me. I'm doing those things.
Yeah, they're trying, and then he changes it to "You're trying hard" in the second verse. It's one of those where he changes the verse again. So changes the verse, and it's not exactly the same because he changed the pronoun. So it's like, "You are trying hard." So who are you talking to? Is it Liam? Is it whoever? I don't know. But it's you know, it's an easy song to miss, but it is if you listen to it by itself and, you know, kind of it's a pretty good song. I really like it. So, you know,
and that's fine. Know. I mean, as I said, we have different opinions on things, and it's like, yeah. As I said, I like the next track. It's like The Girl with the Dirty Shirt, which I think is it is the track.
It's
right. It is the track that feels like it's leaning back most into the older Oasis writing style. I don't know if this is like a track that Noel had for a while. Because I remember you mentioning there were tracks that they played at Nebworth, which then ended up on the album.
Yeah, I think that was My Big Mouth and It's Getting Better Man. So I don't think he had this because this was written specifically about his girlfriend and then became wife Meg Matthews. So this was specifically written about a thing where she had traveled and she didn't pack enough clothing, so she had to iron a dirty shirt. And that's where the title of the song comes from.
I prefer this to Stand By Me. I don't know, it's just whether it's because, again, it's Noel writing what he knows, and it just the earnestness of this comes off a little bit better than Stand By Me, which is sort of just is at once sort of very generic and very personal. Yeah, I like this song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I am okay with it. It's just the problem is it's just like a lot of the sincerity gets drowned out a little bit. It's you could tell this couple was on the way to divorce because I don't know, you don't feel the love you're supposed to feel in this song. And I don't know if it's because Liam's singing it and Liam doesn't fucking know. But
or just the walls of guitar. Yeah.
Well, there's that, but you don't feel the emotion that this is one individual explaining their in their own way how they love them, love another person. It's like that. There's that emotion that doesn't get felt. Like I don't know. The most thing is Ben Folds The Luckiest, where he's just like trying to explain the strangest, all the weirdest top of his head things he can think of, how much they belong together, and they're weird, they don't make sense, and it's kind of creepy. Like when he's like, if he's an old man and meets her as a child, like but it's what's in his head about how he's trying to describe how, I mean, it's kind of trying to be that, but I mean, it's an okay song. It just doesn't. It's one of the ones that mushes together for me. It doesn't scan. I just like, I mean, as
my
mind does not.
I feel like some of the tracks do get lost in that sort of middle bit of the record. Between really Stand By Me and Fade In Out. You've got a couple of tracks that are just about, and they're just like they. It's not that even they feel like they're making up the numbers. It's just they are somewhere in the stretch between this part of the album, and we might have gone past them, we may not have gone past them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and Noel's used up all of his golden songs, so he's just trying to make all of this in chaos, and they are all drugged out of their minds, and it's all dysfunction all around. So they're lucky they got this. I mean, I have heard, albums by people on cocaine that are a lot worse, a lot better too, but their albums where clearly people don't have their heads on straight.
Anybody, this is the thing, like the big problem, and we'll get to really the big problem with Be Here Now, is that basically, unlike unlike the first two albums where the longest track on, obviously, What's the Story Morning On is Champagne Supernova, and it is by far the longest track on the album. Everything else on Be Here on What's the Story Morning Glory is 4 to 5 minutes long. There's obviously the interludes, and it's not that Oasis's music doesn't suit this longer format. It's not that Oasis aren't clever enough songwriters to make their songs longer. It's the way they basically take their standard formula and go, we're just gonna stretch this out, and we're just gonna have endless choruses, and the guitar solo. We're just gonna sit guitar solos everywhere, like we're just interior decorating with guitar solos now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just and but then you get tracks like Fade In, Fade Out, which is which really work.
To a certain extent. I've shown this to you. I showed you the live
version. Which is holy shit amazing.
It's holy shit amazing.
Yeah.
And it's but I don't know. I get mixed on Fade In and Out all the time because it's supposed to be a bluesy song, and they describe it as supposed to be the Wild West with jungle drums and potent psychedelic feel. I'm looking at Genius.com describing it, and it's just this sounds like every other song on the record. I can't tell that this is blues. I can't tell this is anything. You can barely tell Johnny Depp is playing the slide guitar at the beginning. I hear one note on that, and I think, So, the song just goes, and what is it? They say it's the blues, but what's the blues? I'm looking at the lyrics, and it's you got to be bad enough to beat the brave. So get on the Helter Skelter. Hi Beatles reference. Roll into the. It's just waking up in the morning, and you gotta face it as tough as you can.
Yeah, there's the live versions. I will say this, and basically I think the entire album has been played live. Even if Girl with the Dirty Shirt only got one play live, which is sort of indicating instantly they are sort of backing away from this and going, maybe even on the tour for Be Here Now, there's a few tracks of this that get regularly played. It's the obvious tracks that get regularly played, and Liam has played material. I think Noel has played material from this album very rare.
Noel Gallagher did a very good version of Don't Go Away on the Dreams We Had as Children charity CD.
And that, I think, is the one and only time he has played material from Be Here Now in any concert format since.
Noel has deleted this album
as
off
we'll,
his
as we'll get to.
We'll get to. But
my versions of a lot of these songs are there's a really good version from for example MTV Super Dry in Japan of just what do you know what I mean, and it sounds absolutely colossal in a live setting, which is impressive.
And which is and so you deal with the dual nature of fade in and out, what it's supposed to be, and what it is. Like, it is a song about how every day is really hard, and sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not, and how life just feels like it just exists because everything is just, you know, just this emotion of being crunched. So, but that is not the emotion you get off this song. And the best way is you handle is you ignore what the song is about entirely. So when they play it live, there's just a driving guitar intro for at least 2 minutes, and you know it is ready and rocking to go, and you just deal with this like this is a driving rock song, and that's how you get through it. And I don't know if that's the intent. That's obviously not the intention of this song, but it's the best way of ingesting it. And at this point, I do have to say that even though Noel like disavows this album for a variety of reasons, he loved the live tour and thought it was the best time of his life, or one of the best times, I should say. But they apparently had a really good time on the Be Here Now, and they got to be the biggest band in the world, and they made this amazing set. The thing is, I don't think they had the album cover in front of them, but they wanted just stuff from the album cover on the set. So they included things they thought were there,
like the telephone box.
Like they had the telephone box that they come out of. That was supposed to be. They thought that was definitely there. It is absolutely not on the album cover, and they have a working bar attached to above all damn things, the keyboard's pitch modulator. So when they modulated the pitch on the keyboard, that's when alcohol started coming out of the bar, and it's just like, I want to talk to the carpenters who made this, because obviously, you know, they're talking to the biggest band in the world. This is their contract, and they want to be, we did the Be Here Now tour. Give us money because we are great. So they just nodded and wrote down everything they did and replicated it. So it would be nice to pick their brains, just like, how were they?
Probably, as I said, probably quite chemically enhanced at that point. The clock makes it onto the stage show, which I think is actually the only major object from the front cover of Be Here Now that actually ends up in the stage set, although obviously greatly magnified.
They do have a fake Rolls Royce, the drummer, and a fake pool.
The drummer sits in, very peculiar.
Yes.
And then we get to actually what I would say is probably the other really good track on the album, which is Don't Go Away.
Don't Go Away. Like, on one end, I get the people who criticize it, because this is not what you come to Oasis for, is big, obvious, sentimental songs. But when the Oasis does them right, they are some of the best stuff they do. Like, I will say, like, Don't Believe the Truth and Heathen Chemistry are absolute C albums, that they are coasting. There is no inspiration in that. But the best one out of it is Stop Crying Your Heart Out, because it is just a gigantic, extremely sentimental song played at the maximum of, but it's not like this album where they just play all of the guitar overdubs and all of that, and it's just a train. It is playing to get the maximum emotion out of this song is trying to make. So, and that is what Don't Go Away does.
I mean, compared to the other three sort of big tracks of this, which are, obviously, do you know what I mean? Stand By Me and All Around the World. This is the other Signal, although Japan only for some reason. Good song. Very good song. Very good song.
Yeah, it's a great song. You don't really have to think about it a whole lot. It just gets the emotions of it. You don't want the person in your life to go away, and but it makes you feel it. Apparently, Liam cried after the take they used, as the legend goes. You feel that. You feel the stuff I don't quite feel in the other songs that are specifically about things on this album.
For sure. And then we get the title track, which doesn't actually name check the title at all, which is Be Here.
No.
Be Here Now? Be Here.
And then this is where we have Mick Jagger's kids. Yeah. Oh, and like one of the very unique instruments. Like I'll go back to Magic Pie. At the end, they are playing a very weird instrument at the end, and apparently they're just it's the melatonin
Mellotron.
Mellotron, not melatonin, Joseph, but the melatonin that the Beatles used during their Abbey Road sessions. So they just have a little instrumental outro using an album used by the Beatles, and and then we get Mick Jagger's kids piano, which is the do 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 do, which is the start of this album, which was actually the end of another track, but on the Mystique. But yeah, it's a good little song, but it's another one of those that gets caught up if you're listening to this album as a whole, because this is
Apparently Meg hated
like the only trivia is they mention a record store in this that got a lot of business.
Apparently Meg hated Noel mucking about with the plastic piano.
Yeah, like there's like nothing in this song that isn't on that's not you wouldn't get from any other song on this album. Like they're kicking up storms since the day I was born. Well, no shit, no, Noel and Liam. That's what you always do.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
Beatles reference.
I mean,
thanks, lovely. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I'm looking at the lyrics and they say, "So wash your face in the morning sun." I mean, I guess it's the sun, but are they? I don't know. I'm looking too much into this because I've been listening to the album a lot and I have Stockholm syndrome and trying to find the meaning of everything. It's just like, are they reading the sun?
Yeah.
Or is it just the sun as the individual?
Magic Carpet. Is Magic Carpet Ride? Is that a reference to the song Magic Carpet Ride? Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? But sing a song for me. One from Let It Be. Direct. It's on the nose.
Yeah.
And it's trying to be
too clever, I think.
It's a lot of things. This album is trying to be in a casserole, and it's a decent song. I'm fine with it. It's just it is the one you absolutely will not remember listening to this album.
Despite being the title track.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we come to All Around the World.
All Around the World, which is
Jesus
the
Christ,
album,
it's long.
the song Noel has been trying to make for years, but he had to make it big.
This is like
he had to make it huge. It is, and then you listen to the lyrics and all the stuff he has, and there's no reason this needs to be this big. Like it has a chorus, it has two verses, but the way you go from the third chorus to just repeating the chorus and just the song just goes on like that is just.
And obviously, I think we need to sort of generally talk about this because this is a microcosm of everything that is great and terrible about this record.
Mm-hmm.
The music video is great, by the way. Is that sort of very Terry
Yeah.
Gilliamish, sort of English
Yeah.
psychedelia, Yellow Submarine sort of type thing. I fucking
Yeah.
love this song.
Okay. I really like the song too. I get into it, but I am as a person ADHD person who doesn't
Yeah. Oh no, for
occasionally
sure.
doesn't get into the music for the lyrics or the meaning. Um, like I will just go with this song, and it's just like, oh wow, it's so big and it's just so amazing.
It's a vibe.
And then
It's
it's just like it's not. I wouldn't call it a vibe, but it's an adventure. It is exactly as big as they want it to be, even if it is not. Probably, it is way too big for what it deserves to be. I don't know, but like it's the music video, which was made, took a year to make, and apparently, I can't. I remember this being on pop-up video, and I remember like the little facts they had on it. Of course, they cut it down to 3 minutes and then faded out to the next video because they're on a schedule. But this was apparently made by. It took college kids a year to make this music video, and you know it is collage work, which is the usual Terry Gilliam, and just making silly things. You can find some meaning of it. It's not. You're not going to find the meaning of The Wall, like the animated flower sequence from the movie The Wall.
Flowers.
But you will find. But they are literally going on a journey around the world to spread their thing of peace, and you know, I think the video sells it better than the band does because they get really heavy, and they are the last people who ever should sell peace and love in the world because of how you know they just want to fuck up and fuck with everyone, but they do have like this tribe of people in newspaper print, and they shoot pens at them that shoot like weaponized ink, and then there's this mastermind with 4 brains that is telling them what to do. Gee, could that be the media?
And Alan McGee at Creation Records? I wonder what this could be. So
I don't know. But, you know, there is that meat, but it is just a fun, crazy video. I don't think the song or the video meet their goals of them trying to be the Beatles, because the Beatles had, regardless of John Lennon's past with, you know, his abuse and all of that, they had a huggable quality. They were lovable people.
What a hug, George.
And
particularly George. George is just like,
particularly George. Okay, that's fine. But Oasis, you do not want to hug. They do not sell
peace and love.
Love. Like peace and love as much as they do. And like I specifically made a gif of the moment in the music video where Liam and Noel like do this "How you doing, mate?" look at each other while they're in the middle of the na-nas, and it is like the most artificial thing in the world. Maybe because I know the whole story. Like at this point, they were with each other as little as possible. Like
professional.
By the end of the recording of the album. By the end of the album, Noel had fucked off to Mystique, and Liam had to recorded the vocals by himself. He didn't want anybody else, so they were kind of tired of each other's shit, but they had to show up and try to pretend to be the Beatles for this one music video.
And they're all in white suits.
And as Noel will say, those are some ill-fitting suits. And, you know, you have Bonehead, like, waving at the tribe, and then Grigsy's there, and I feel like Grigsy should be a bigger person than he is in his Oasis, because he was there for most of the time until the end of Be Here Now, and he is like one of the band members. But it's just like they were also with Owen Morris, who, according to Nick Bryan, infamously hated bassists. Like he would make other people record the bassist stuff, or he would just do what he could to leave it out. According to Nick Bryan. So Owen, you know, as the legend goes, like, so the bass is not featured nearly as much in the Oasis repertoire as it probably should, and Noel does this in the rethink of Do You Know What I Mean?
He could join.
But you can hear the bass, but then it's just like now that everything's separated, I only hear like the individual, and I'm not hearing the song anymore.
Yeah, you could join Jason Newsted in the corner of bassists who deserved better.
Okay. Yeah. So, but anyway, back to All Around the World. They got a full orchestra that they completely annoyed while they were doing all of their work. And there were some like orchestra people they saw this as their opportunity, and one of them was like, "Hey guys, I know what you need on this album, a piccolo trumpet, and you know what? I have one right here, and I can play it for you, and you can put this on your song." So the reprise is
basically that.
Is the piccolo trumpet being added to the outro of the song. So it is just this one orchestral guy just like, okay, we'll do this. And everybody else, apparently, they annoyed because they were behind the conductor. They were drugged out and impersonating the conductor as you do when you are drugged out and you want to do something funny. But, that was at Abbey Road. And one of the reasons why they kind of left Abbey Road and why a lot of people were happy they left Abbey Road.
Stop annoying our classical orchestra, please. On the other hand, the pure ambition of this is, like, admirable. This is, like, one of the first things Noel Gallagher... And you must have thought, Noel goes, you know how Axl Rose kept, what was it, November Rain? It's like, no, we're not going to do November Rain. Oh, we got to get it so we're basically, the biggest band in the world. And then we're going to do this song. And it's like, for what it is, which is basically, let's do the Beatles, let's do Hey Jude, but 9 minutes long. It's like, there are so many key changes in this. There's like three key changes. And like the bit where it goes, from when Liam gets sort of a bit shouted, it's like, this is...
it's gonna be okay!
And just Noel just put...
It's like... Are you trying to convince yourself of that, sir? I mean, it works better with the music video because they have that volcano creature and that, explodes on them. Make of that what you will. Yeah. If you're just listening to the song yourself, it's like, okay, what are you doing here?
Too much...
Are you trying to convince yourself it's going to be okay? And it's just like... But I do like a lot of things. I do like the second verse, and it's just like it is a very big thing for, like, especially when you're talking about peace and love. It's just like, what you gonna do when your walls come falling down? You never move. You're never gonna make sound. And where you're gonna swim with the riches that you found? You're lost at sea. Well, I hope that you drown. It's like, okay,
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what that's about, but it is a very good slam in this song about peace and love and spreading it around the world. And it kind of comes off in the music video where their alien spaceship just gets bigger and bigger until they become this giant totalitarian ruler of peace and love. And
there will be peace and love.
That kind of rubs off on the show where you will have peace and love, or Liam... We'll stick Liam on.
And he'll sing some more. He'll sing another 3 choruses, and the key change will keep happening until pieces are established.
Did you see Conan's interview with Sacha Baron Cohen about when he met Liam Gallagher and why he based his entire character in a movie on him? Where he was just this batshit insane maniac. Yeah, that's who we're going to send after you.
He wants there to be peace. There will be peace.
There will
not only
be
is it the
peace.
longest song that Oasis ever released a single, it is, to date, the longest single ever to go to #1 in the UK. And we're not talking... Because Noel, obviously not being Noel, sort of went, well, of course they're going to edit it down. Dear listener, they did not edit it down. The single version... The version that was released as the single is the full, nearly 10-minute version.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a longer version supposedly out there. It was originally written as a 12-minute song, and there the song ends on a fade out, and then it fades back in with the reprise, which is the much cooler, calm we're getting out of this album version. And what there's a lot of people. It's like, what happened in those 3 minutes?
Nolan did all of the drugs. And then we get to the final proper track on the album, which is "It's Getting Better, Man."
Yeah, which he says was supposed to be more like a Rolling Stones song, even though it's literally referencing a Beatles song. But it's another song that feels like it's on the train, but it is one of the tracks that was made before the album went into the brain
melt.
Brain sessions.
Yeah, it does feel very much like I guess a sort of staging point between the obviously the What's the Story sort of sound and the Be Here Now sound. It does sound.
Yeah.
It sounds like something that could have easily been on What's the Story, Morning Glory without any problem. It's that sort of slightly more garagey, rocky sounding, and there's less embellishment, and Noel sings the word, or Liam sings the word, "We're getting better, man," 41 times.
So there is that largeness, and I don't think it. Some of it contributes to the song, some of it doesn't. I think it's a good song, but it's just like. It's one you can take or leave on this album. I mean, it's kind of not something you want to end with. Which is why it has the reprise at the end. But
it's not a bad song. It's just why end the record with this? I almost think if they'd swapped this with All Around the World.
If you put it puts it on T for critics that it ends with a whimper, not a bang, or something like that. If you're not into this, it's really going to put a stamp on the experience. But it's a good song. It's just like I don't know why it's here.
And we end obviously with a reprise of All Around the World with said piccolo trumpets. The album stills to quiet, and we hear just in the distance a door being shut, and that's the indication the album is over. I don't get the metaphor for the plane taking off and then the door getting shut. I don't feel a full story has been told here, but We've made it to the end of the record.
they're on drugs. What they have is what is in front of them, and their big ideas on how to make this the biggest thing ever at the moment.
And certainly,
I do like the reprise quite a bit, though. Will listen to it 2 or 3 times in a row because I do like the piccolo trumpet. I do like you can hear the drums now and like the fanfare from the orchestra, and it all comes together in a really nice way that you don't get with the wall of everything, the freight train.
And I'm just gonna. This is the part of the way you just let the record finish, and your ears are starting to probably whistle because you have subjected yourself to this at probably maximum volume, because that's exactly what Oasis would have you do. So the album is in the can.
It's in the can. It is getting released, and Ignition, the people in charge of getting the release out to the press and all of that, are being gigantic dicks.
This is where this is where the cocaine psychosis leaves the music and sort of permeates into everything else at this point.
Because when they released the singles to the press early, they were given the stipulation that the DJ had to talk over them the whole time so they couldn't be pirated. And one person was blacklisted from getting anything else because they didn't feel he talked over it enough.
Yeah, that's now Steve Lamacq, also known as Lamo, who is one of the now probably the best music presenters. He now works on Six Music, So they basically, they received the disc. They didn't talk enough over it to it, and Steve Lamacq had to go on his show on Radio 1. Back when basically everyone who was into any kid who was into music was listening to Radio 1 and going, yeah, we, the national broadcaster, because we did not talk enough over the 3 tracks that, Camp Oasis have sent out to us under horrendously high security. We're not allowed to play any more of the album, and we're not allowed to play any more preview tracks. Yeah, this is sort of par for the course.
Yeah,
so Oasis kind of went. Oasis and Ignition went basically kind of native. Basically,
yeah.
Inside Creation, it basically became a siege mentality. Oasis and Ignition basically said, you're not allowed into the office here. You're not allowed to mention Oasis. We're sending somebody round to check your phone because we think the sun has tapped your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, there are the people at Oasis. There are the Oasis people at Creation, and they're not Oasis, and there is a distinct difference between how they were treated.
And then when cassette copies obviously are going out to the press, they send it out with a clause. They send it out with supposedly, this is according to some sources, numbered copies of the tape. So literally, if obviously it leaks, they would be able to trace it back to it. Don't talk about the album to your girlfriend. Don't talk about the album. Don't talk about the album. And it became just increasingly neurotic. Alan McGee has basically gone on the amount of drugs he's already on feral, and basically goes, we're gonna sell 20 million copies of this. This is i.e. more than better than What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yeah.
It becomes basically a us and them and just complete paranoia.
Yeah. It is, above all things, it is like the follow-up to a great movie that made a shit ton of money. The Dark Knight Rises, take your
exactly.
pick. Like the 1998 Godzilla is the follow-up to Independence Day. That was an event.
Yeah.
And it, obviously when it came out, it was one of the fastest selling albums of all time. Was the fastest selling album. But was it a success? Absolutely it was a success. Was it as big of a success?
Well.
Not as much. It sold 8 million copies.
The madness doesn't stop there. This is where it gets really weird. So, basically, Oasis go to, and obviously, they kind of consider the sort of a midnight opening, as obviously has become de rigueur for video games and certain books these days, obviously, particularly after the Harry Potter novels. They basically go to major, they're basically their retailers going, you're not going to sell this before 8 a.m. People queue outside HMV in London. HMV give away a certificate for everybody who buys this out. This is like completely mad by this point. There are like Noel and Liam cardboard cutouts just dotted in this queue. That HMV is now a sweet shop, as half of the shops now in London are, but yeah, that's rock and roll for you, mate. And then it basically, it's sort of, and this is where we need to talk about the hype for this album. There is what I'm going to call a course correction with reviews for this record. So we need to go back a little bit to What's the Story, Morning Glory, because basically a lot of music journalists go, definitely maybe great record. What's the Story, Morning Glory? Well, it basically just sounds like more of the same. Shrug. What's the Story, Morning Glory proceeds to sell several million copies and probably becomes the highest outselling album of the year. Shit, says all the musical journalists. We really undersold this. We basically got our asses handed to us by basically we look like idiots. Shit. The next thing that Oasis do, we've got to absolutely rubber stamp as being the greatest thing ever. Which is precisely what happens. Like, some of the reviews for this... For some of the... And I have to say, obviously, some of the contemporaneous reviews for Be Here Now are, frankly, border on... Well, just ridiculously...
Video game reviews. I'm just going to say it. Video game reviews. Because, like, everything is an 8 or a 9 and just this fantastic thing.
You know... I mean,
and
somebody
like,
from...
A video game getting a 10 means nothing anymore. Metal Gear Solid 5 got a 10. It means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point where, like, people are comparing this to, you know, the most important British album since Sgt. Pepper's. Which, absolutely fair when you compare it to... If you were to attach those plaudits to its predecessor. It's sort of a lot of the things that I think basically just went, oh, this is what we actually think about now, about what's the story about Glee. We're gonna attach these now to this new album Oasis have got out.
And
just like...
And there is a certain psychological effect to, like, when you get into excitement, and I think the album would feed into the excitement because it is, you know, the biggest album ever in terms of being loud, and it can give you that feeling that it is, especially if you are engaged and you are at that emotional state.
Yeah,
like it will give you euphoric emotional state, and then and only later when you're, you know, picking it apart and your mind gets into critical mode that, like, well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe this isn't. So there is a certain euphoria, and there's a, you know, certain psychological thing, but I didn't expect it to get, like, the complete revised view that people get, like, that it's just like, oh god.
I mean,
oh god, what is this
shit? To give you
shit?
some idea of how sort of basically far down the pole this went. So, for example, the music website Pitchfork gave the original, this is 1997, 7.9 out of 10, which for Pitchfork is basically very good record, very good, you know, something basically any musico worth their things is basically going to buy. The retrospective review for obviously the box set is 5.3. Yeah, with basically you get a lot of retrospective reviews, particularly for the 10th and the 15th anniversaries, of going, God, what were we thinking? And it's like this course correction of going, oh, actually, we really, really overhyped this, and it's bloated, and it's just basically cocaine maximalism, and oh my god, this is basically like standing next to a jet engine. And I have reservations about that.
Yeah.
I think basically the problem is now, and I guarantee now we are approaching the 25th anniversary, I think we are going to see perhaps a little bit of a course correction back the other way now. To sort of go, actually, do you know what? This is the end of really an epoch of rock music on basically provided and displayed by probably its most famous band of the first half of the 90s. You know, you cannot talk about 90s rock music in the UK or beyond without mentioning Oasis.
Yeah. But it is an ending to a certain point of, like, the British pop, the second British invasion, and it gets to the you know, like, knee-jerk overreaction back. Noel Gallagher has essentially disavowed this knowledge. This owned it. Like, he does not. I mean, he talked about it, gave one, like, 28-minute interview on the album on its 20th anniversary, and that's about all he's gonna give you.
I mean, as far back as in July 1997, Nog was regarding some of the tracks as quote fucking shit, and trying to compare himself to Phil Collins. I don't know whether he, obviously coming to the famous Noel Gallagher sort of quote, "It's the sound of 5 guys high on coke, not giving a fuck."
Yeah, which is probably a little too harsh. Like it is absolutely not definitely maybe.
Certainly not
What's Story Morning Glory. But it is also not like other things that Noel is perfectly fine with on Heathen Chemistry and Don't Believe the
solo
Truth
projects
that are just mediocre cruising shit that mean nothing, that say nothing, and feel nothing. Like I am a big Oasis fan, and I will say Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, their follow-up to this, is their most underrated
I would
album.
agree that.
And it has a lot of like really good tracks, even if Noel will say, "Oh God, we were so uninspired."
It's the one album that Noel and Liam seem united on going, it's a bit crap in their opinion.
But it is where people abandoned, because after this, Grigsby left, Bonehead left, Owen Moore stopped being the producer, and this is where like the story of Oasis ends. But they have another 10 years plus left of discography in the and they do the Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, which has some really killer songs and is a mostly good, and it moves fast until like it kind of peters out in the second half, which is it is a good feeling album, and also their final album, Dig Out Your Soul, is really good, and it's like it is a weirdly it's a themed album about the apocalypse.
Imagine Oasis doing a concept
album, and it was really good. I'm guessing it was really prescient to Noel Gallagher because he was really thinking about blowing the band up, they have done a lot worse and a lot more I don't give a shit. And yes, I Am Too Close. I grew up with this is part of my adolescence. This album was part of my adolescence, so there is a part I can't separate. But this, when I think about failures, when I think about like bad albums, this ain't
absolutely
it.
not.
It's not. I mean, like obviously, I have plenty of reservations, and you don't listen to this all at once, and there's at least one song when you listen through it that's going to be like, you know what, let's skip this shit. I'm not feeling it right now. But you know, like I said, I've loved all of these songs at least one time in my life. So you know, it did something. It's a good album. It's just not a good album all at once.
And there are a couple of other things we do need to talk about in relation to this. I don't believe, and obviously people are going to make grumpy comments and going, "Oh well, I don't think it's a very good record." Blah, 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 blah. I don't think Be Here Now's sort of sudden drop and Oasis's sudden drop out of basically the zeitgeist was entirely Oasis's fault. Yes, absolutely, they were out of their minds on drugs. Absolutely, it's too long, it's too noisy, there is too much to Be Here Now. It is an album sans editing, sans sort of, dynamics. But it is also an album where I think, Oasis feel like the last element, really, of that sort of big bravado rock of the 90s. You gotta consider, Oasis come to fruition. Oasis has really come to being the biggest band in the world, at least from an Anglo-centric point of view, alongside, the rise of New Labour, England going to the semi-finals of the World Cup. England at the point where Be Here Now comes out is this incredibly buoyant. I can vaguely remember, the sense of, the UK being, in this sort of thing, to use the infamous line, things can only get better, and Oasis come to be here now, on this sort of this wave of basically good vibes, But there is a fly. There's a fly in the before we get into, I think, the instigating factor of what really changed British rock music in really the latter half of 1997. That fly in the ointment is a band called Radiohead.
Yes.
So Radiohead, even at this point, have got a bit of a rivalry with Oasis. Again, it's another bunch of young upstart art school kids, who are going, actually, we're really quite good at this rock and roll thing. And what they produce is a little album called OK Computer, which
one of the greatest and most influential albums of all time. Yeah.
And OK Computer, I think, is really sort of like this almost prophetic sensibility of where music is about to go, because this is sort of, because we need to talk about we need to talk about what happened less than 2 weeks after Be Here Now. So it's ironic we've sort of mentioned paparazzi throughout this thing, because obviously, less than 2 weeks after Be Here Now, obviously Princess Diana dies in a car crash in Paris. Yeah. And I was there because obviously, I can vaguely remember the summer of 97. It was like a light switch went off. It basically, the national mood turned on a dime and left out in the cold at the point where music became more introspective. I mean, you could see, at the point where Oasis are putting out signals. Radiohead are putting out Karma Police, basically the second track off OK Computer, and it's charting higher than Be Here Now. You can see it's almost in real time, and obviously, you come to obviously the ultimate example of this, which is Something About the Way You Look Tonight, Candle in the Wind, 1997, which is Elton John, which is the highest selling single of 1997. And by that point, Oasis are out in the cold. Music is turning towards a more introspective, less bragging, less bravado, less swaggering, up-tempo rock. And basically the stage is set for basically the rise of more introspective, independent rock. So things, obviously,
and
I didn't mean to interrupt. You get things like Coldplay, obviously the Coldplay and their ilk, and that obviously lead, and obviously leading this charge is Radiohead.
Yeah, and also what plays into it is they didn't do anything for 3 years. And I mean, certainly losing half of your band hurts. Yeah. Absolutely, that's going to hurt. But it's like there were no singles. There was not a peep out of Oasis, except for their personal shit, from 1997
with
to
the exception of the Master Plan, which is basically
Master Plan, which is their B-sides,
which is great. But
I mean but there's no new music. There is not any. They are not making any attempt to come back to this and be the try to be one of the voices or to evolve I mean, they do try to evolve. Standing on the Shoulder of Giants sounds very different. I mean, it's still Oasis, but still sounds very different. Mostly drum loops, but considering their problem with their first drummer, I think they would prefer drum loops.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
anyway, but it is very different, and they are not the voice anymore. There's nothing, and they will even say they were uninspired. They were just kind of doing what the producers wanted them to do and just making their own songs. But it is Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, as much as I like it, is not an album of the people who are trying to define,
No.
a genre or anything. It is an album. It is a pretty good album, but it is not like the album of the biggest band in the world doing something revolutionary. I mean, they are following the Chemical Brothers advice.
I mean, at this point, obviously, Liam is trying to get off drugs. Noel is trying to get off drugs. Liam is, basically all at sea.
Liam at all at sea, and then his wife divorces him in the middle of the Standing on the Shoulder of Giants tour, which is why the Familiar to Millions double live album has so much of Liam talking, changing the lyrics, and just like being a sod, because his wife had just left him, cleaned out the apartment, didn't tell him, and he is on all of the alcohol and probably all of the drugs.
And Noel also imploding, by the way,
Noel,
at that point.
And Noel at that point was getting off drugs, but he had gotten off his addiction to cocaine or whatever drug it was by getting addicted to Valium. So he is not doing anything to stop Liam. He can't, because he is just he is on Valium, even in the middle of a 2-night concert that is supposed to be their live album, and they had to pull the recordings from other albums because Liam is being such a shit during like their this is supposed to be the Oasis live album, and it is it's not for other various reasons. But
Liam is also, by the way, getting banned from Cathay Pacific, Hong Kong's national carrier, and is featuring in the documentary Hellraiser alongside Peter O'Toole, Oliver Reed, Richard Harris, Keith Moon, and Ozzy Osbourne. This is how out of control Liam Gallagher is by the turn of the century.
Yeah. And then that's kind of the divide in where we, why the band eventually exploded and why they probably won't get together again. James Hargreaves put some things together, like Liam is essentially becoming Noel's abusive father, even though Noel did everything he could to protect Liam from it, and by doing that, did he make his brother become his father? That is a theory that James Hargreaves puts out, and that's valid. But it's just like Liam is just a shit. I am the little brother. I get it. You are just a shit because you can get away with it, and I understand this. But there's a point where you just have to stop. And he is stopped to a certain point. He's probably off all the hardest drugs. I wouldn't say he's off everything, given how he acts, but he probably crossed a certain line, and James Hargreaves has this line where and you can watch his videos on that, but and Noel is just assumed the role of elder statesman, great poet, all of this, and he has gone to assume that role, and Liam is still trying to be a rock and roller at the like his band Beady Eye was when they split. I will say this: Noel Gallagher's Flying Birds first 2 albums were fine, and Beady Eye's first album was good. I actually kind of liked it. He brought like new sounds to it, like they have like a Motown choir and like bluesy. When he makes a bluesy song, it actually sounds like it. But then Liam Gallagher completely ran out of ideas for the second album and then his solo career, and it's just like he has all of one song in him per album, and then it's just stuff that's just there. So I don't think they're going to reunite unless something extreme happens.
We commented about this before recording. I mean, the 3 things that I think would basically bring Oasis back together is either faux pas. Manchester City win the European Championship, or one of the brothers is either severely ill, or needs money. Given they are both multi-millionaires at this point, Mr. Guardiola, everything is in your hands at the moment, I think.
I'm sure they have tried to spend all of the money they have at one point, and they can't. So I'm sure they will be just fine in that sense. And there was one joking thing where it's like, well, if Manchester United got relegated, then that might be it.
Mr. Guardiola, everything is in your hands. But no, I mean, this is the end of an epoch.
Noel Gallagher doesn't want it to be the end of the era. That's why he disowns it, because he doesn't want to be the person responsible for killing Britpop, even though
dying.
That's
was arguably dead.
That's not what happened, but he doesn't want to be the person to blame.
And Britpop was arguably dead by the time that the Gallaghers were even sort of considering releasing Be Here Now. I mean, perhaps Britpop was never really a thing at all. Perhaps it was just the creation of, like, so much we've talked about today, the creation of the medium.
It was like one or two bands led the second British invasion, but when they had, okay, what else you got? They don't have very much. We have, like, the Verve Pipe. Wait, was it the Verve or the Verve Pipe?
The Verve.
Bittersweet Symphony. The Verve, okay. Verve Pipe is Freshman.
We got a song that's basically...
They came out at the same time. That got confusing.
We got a song that's basically that song by the Rolling Stones, but better. Oh, it says the Rolling Stones. Well, about that. Yeah, which I think they gave the rights back to, actually, the Verve the other year, which was quite a nice gesture. I mean, for the Rolling Stones, who are horrendously rich. But no, as I said, this is like, you know, in an alternate reality where this does very well, it's like, well, that's great, Oasis. Where else can you go from this? You know, let's say, you know, for example, we live in an alternate reality whereby, you know, the events in Paris don't happen, and we basically have a nice long summer of Oasis clambering up the charts, and Noel Gallagher saying unpleasant things about Tom York in the British musical press, and Oasis do a tour on this album and go, great, what next?
Okay, here's the thing I would like. Granted, Sgt. Pepper was first, and the White Album was after, so this doesn't follow chronologically in thought. But, so, would we say Be Here Now is the White Album where they're completely on drugs and they make this complete double album? I mean, not to say the White Album is comparable in quality. No, not at all, except for the, like, the break tracks where they are clearly on drugs and fucking around. But what I would have liked to have seen from this era is Oasis trying to make Sgt. Pepper's
just
Lonely
going
Hearts
fully
Club
into
Band.
the psychedelic thing that they sort of dabble with in Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, in other words. Okay.
Yeah, well, kind of, sort of. Like, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants is them following whatever producers, and, like, what was big is, like, you know, getting techno and electronica that had exploded in the mid-90s with them, because Noel Gallagher is infamously good with the Chemical Brothers. He is on Setting Sun and Let Forever Be, which are two of their most well-known songs, and for good reason. Don't ever listen to I don't know why the Chemical Brothers tried to sell the lyricless instrumental version of Setting Sun to America. That is like this. Like, I was put off from the Chemical Brothers for years because Setting Sun was so abrasive, and then I listened to the lyrics and Noel Gallagher's vocals, and like, that all makes sense.
Yeah,
this song is actually really great. Why did you try to sell it to us like this? Did you not want to pay Noel Gallagher? What did you not want to do?
Liam
here?
also did vocals for the British electronic band Death in Vegas as well. So they've both been at it.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I can see
there was that part of Explosion. That's where they went, but they weren't trying to control it. They were just following at that point.
Something not unlike Primal Scream, Screamadelica, in which it's a synthesis of basically the new big thing of that period, which was, you know, basically this electronica with Oasis's sound. That could have been absolutely fucking mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like they had kind of run out of gas, and they tried to put some more back in the tank. And, you know, they had Standing on the Shoulder of a Giant, which was pretty good. Although, you know, don't ever talk to Noel Gallagher about Sunday Morning Call. He will kill you.
And the thing is, I don't think, in all due fairness, to Oasis, to Liam, to Noel, they could have continued on this trajectory, because it would either have killed one or both of them, and this is not a spiral that, if basically Be Here Now hadn't fallen flat on its face after its initial impressive opening, that would have, you know, because where is there to go? You know, once you are, we're the biggest band in the world. Well, here's another album that basically only cements that. Great. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, and it's just it's probably essentially making the same thing over and over. That's realistically what they would have done. Yeah. And, you know, people would have been really tired of it, and they would have been passé. I think the problem with Standing on the Shoulder of Giants is, you know, people were just, you know, people had moved on.
It was just
people had just frankly moved on.
It was just an album rather than the arrival of, you know, the biggest band in the world. Yeah.
But okay, we've gone about 2.5 hours. I think that's about enough. Unless, I mean, the album, it has its fans. Noel Gallagher was once stopped by Marilyn Manson, who went on about the album longer than the album, and we have went twice the length of the album, but, you know, that's different things. But, like, Kasabian? Kasabian. I am very sorry, but essentially Noel Gallagher was told by them they formed their band because of Be Here Now, which the timeline matches up, I guess. But, so it has its fans, and, you know, I like it well enough, but I am unable to separate it from, they are my favorite band of my adolescence, and my favorite band ever. So you know, when people bring up worst albums of all time,
this ain't it. You think you've heard bad albums.
You have not heard Paula Cole try to rap.
Oh, please, Joe, please. I've got worse in store.
Oh, I bet.
But anyway, we have been talking about this for a long time. We will be doing another anniversary episode because, hey, you seem to like these things. That will be coming out in at some point later this year, if I can find the date.
In the meantime,
coming out on October the 5th.
In the meantime, we are going to go, while you're finding it, we are going to go to our, like, audience polarizing things, and we are probably going to go back to our anime, which we go between anime and music so we don't burn out on one thing, and we have energy to talk about things, which so we're going to Laid Back Camp, and then, you know, we'll move on to my choice, and we'll move on to our next music choices, and you know, we'll go from there. So, Toma,
I have found our but yes. So, on the 5th of October, on this channel, we will be talking about REM's 8th studio album, Automatic for the People, which will be celebrating its 30th anniversary.
And right around the time when James Hargreaves posted his REM versus Oasis.
Indeed.
Which is surprise, REM and Oasis did
No.
not work well together at the one night they played a
Indeed
festival
not.
together.
Obviously, I have another very quick announcement. In the last week of October, I will be streaming for the UK Cats Trust and for the British Heart Foundation. I will be streaming some Final Fantasy all week long for charity. So come and watch me try and play some very old RPGs that have been updated by Square Enix for, the 21st century. I will put my Twitch down below, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in detail nearer the time.
I look forward to you swearing at Final Fantasy II, the actual Final Fantasy II, and rage quitting.
Final Fantasy II, Joe. Final Fantasy II. Yes, you'll see.
The one nobody likes.
Joe, Final Fantasy II. The game you would have known as Final Fantasy II in about 19...
that one. Okay, so you're going to skip 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Very good. Very good.
You can find us on Twitter at NotSoFinalProd and on Patreon at patreon.com/The Thom and Joe Show, where our episodes go up early and you can listen to them in advance for just £1 or $1.20 a month.
Okay.
Right.
now that we have taken all the drugs, we have thrown ourselves into this 2.5-hour podcast. It's time to blow up the podcast. No, I'm kidding. We'll be here next time, I promise.
I'm going to go do some more guitar overdubs. See you in a bit.
Okay.
I've been Tom.
Yeah. All right. Make sure you can't hear me. That's for the best.
See you later, folks.